Hello, everybody. Welcome into Ohio Stadium. The number one team in the country, the Buckeyes, just won 73-14 over Maryland to begin November and move to 9-0. This is Rapid Reaction brought to you by Buyers Auto. That's Tim May. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. Fellas, that was something. I don't know what it was. Ryan Day was extremely aggressive from the start. It was almost as if he had some point to prove today. Not sure what exactly that might be, but Ohio State played without Chase Young and had no problems whatsoever. What are your first thoughts on that dominant win? Another one, the ninth in a row, another blowout win.
It was a beatdown, for one of another term. What was it? 49? Was it 49-0 at the half or 42-0? 42-0 at the half. We saw about as nothing's ever perfect. About as well executed a flip onside kick as you've ever seen, and it was great because they had set it up on the previous kickoffs. We had these three guys flowing into the play. Two of them went, and Chris Olave went right down the sideline. You're going to see that on my podcast. I'm going to break that one down for you on Tuesday. But bottom line is, it was Justin Fields could have been sharper in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, he overthrew some balls.
42-0.
He overthrew some balls, but ironically, there was one throw in this end zone here that he had Chris Olave between two guys, and I thought he missed, but he missed in the absolute perfect spot. And
right.
To me, it was like a really encouraging thing to see, even though it was an incomplete pass. It was that sort of thing that really shows the development of where Justin Fields is today, because he threw it right at this C over here, and it was exactly where it had to be. And if Olave would have had a chance to turn around 1 second earlier, he would have caught
1 second is all it would have caught, because it was very similar. Remember the touchdown he caught against Michigan last year, where Haskins threw in the same kind of jump down on this side. But you're exactly right. But to me, what was really encouraging for the team was the way it did rally, circle the wagons, whatever cliche you want to use. Missing Chase Young, you had Zack Harrison and Tyreek Smith leading the charge from the defensive standpoint. But the guy who set the tone for the defensive line was, with no doubt, Devon Hamilton.
Second play of the game.
Yeah, he had 2 sacks, but he was blowing it up every play.
And I think you look at these games, and we talked about it all week. I mean, Maryland was never, ever going to have a chance with their personnel to beat Ohio State. And that starts from their head coach on down, as we alluded to earlier in the week. But there could have been a potential distraction for these guys. With Chase Young out, you have the top spot in the college football playoff rankings. You have the Heisman talk. You have Ryan Day still being rumored just in the future for NFL jobs. I mean, sometimes that stuff catches up on you and you don't play sharp. I mean, Ohio State was up 42-0 at halftime. They scored 73 points. Yeah, the backups gave up a couple touchdowns late, but who cares? I think that this was a reminder that the way Ohio State is approaching every single game, the focus and the importance that they put on Saturday, I don't think there's anybody that can match it in the country right now. And you know, you can laugh and say that they're in the easy part of the schedule, and they are. They play Maryland and Rutgers right now. Those are walkthrough games, and they only need to play the starters for a half. But you can only take the starters out at halftime if you play your best for 2 quarters. Yeah,
well, they played sort of what should have been expected to be a little bit of a murderer's row, or at least a salter's row. With Nebraska, Michigan State, Northwestern. Was in the championship game a year ago, and then, of course, Wisconsin. So they paid their dues earlier in the season. You're right. You're required to play Rutgers and Maryland at least once every year because they're in the same division as you are. But you're exactly right. It just kind of, we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, but boy, you just keep thinking about that game next week. And I mean, if this was a mismatch, what is that?
Yeah, it's going to be terrifying.
Ohio State was 6 of 6 in scoring drives in the first half, all touchdowns. 8 of 8 on third down in the first half. You start to run out of adjectives to talk about how well prepared this team is. And we joked about it on the sideline in the third quarter, but it's good, or fourth quarter. Maybe there's things they can work on, right? So they got a handful of stupid penalties in the second half. The third string defense was suspect. Maryland beat Rutgers by 41 points. Ohio State was favored today by 43.5. Is next week going to be the largest line in Big Ten history?
How many points would it take?
I don't think there'll be a line next week.
How many points would it take to get people to bet on Rutgers? Like, that is the question, because if Ohio State wants to win if they want to score 100 next week, I promise you that they could.
I retweeted a photo of the guy who made a bet last night on Ohio State. You can bet anything now. The first half was 27.5. They were favored to score it to be up 27.5. at halftime according to the line, and he took that and they were up 42-9. I go, there's one of the happiest men in America today.
Cash
$20,000 check. That's pretty good.
Great teams cover, right?
Ohio State has been one of the best teams in the country at that.
Oh yeah. Well, they're 8-1 now in that regard. But past that, I mean, second half they put the backups in there. DeJuan Jones had some challenges, but kind of got his act together as it went along. Would cost him a touchdown, with the one holding call.
Yeah.
But I was worried because my bold prediction was they were going to have their highest rushing total of the season this far, and with about 25 minutes to go, they only had 109 yards rushing, and then boom, they finished with 380 or 390 something. I feel really good.
Yeah.
But the point is, they just kind of steamrolled them and then crushed them, and it was interesting to watch. Marcus Crowley, you hope he's okay.
Yeah, they did that with Master Teague and Marcus Crowley, and you look at that, he did take one
and
hit.
Demario McCall.
Yeah, he got in there and got some late touchdowns. So the Crowley, we saw him go into the medical tent there in the fourth quarter. He walked out under his own power. He didn't need the cart. We'll obviously keep an eye on that because Berm, you look at this guy, you've talked about him since his recruitment, that he was a little bit under the radar. I don't know, we spend too much time on a third-string tailback, but this guy has a really bright future. He scored another touchdown in this game before that injury.
Yeah.
It's worth keeping an eye on him because, again, as the season winds down and there's bigger games looming, you might need a third option. You never know what's going to happen with Teague and Dobbins.
You just never know. And what you're looking at is a team, and we've kind of talked all year about Demario McCall and how there hasn't really been a role for him. I thought it was interesting today that when Marcus Crowley got hurt, that it was not Steel Chambers who came into the tailback position. I think that is sort of indicative of where things are, and so you can pretty much chalk up a red shirt for him. You can chalk up a red shirt for Cade Stover. There's a few other guys that didn't see the field today that you can start to now piece those things together. But that's what this week and next week is about. It's about preparing for the future. It's about these are bowl practices, but in game form.
Yeah.
And it's really an opportunity for Ohio State to get some much needed work.
Jameson Williams, for example, was in the game early. He's going to factor, like we've been talking about. I keep making those predictions about him. It's going to happen one of these days, But right on down the line, it was key to get to keep the starters fresh. Number two, it was key for the defense to play well without Chase Young, because as I've been talking all week, and we talked about this. Football is not like basketball. We would prefer to have the best player in the country out there playing for you, but the flip side of it is 11 guys. Yeah. And Ohio State showed today against,
Did Maryland have what did they have? 15 yards at half?
It was. They had 2 yards rushing.
I was already running
midway through.
Yeah.
They had 2 yards rushing, I think, early in the fourth quarter, and then they kind of amped that up a little bit. Against the backup defense.
I'm going to recommend we just don't talk about this game anymore.
Yeah, but it was important for this defense to go out and against a team that scored 51 on them last year and ran all over them.
Those guys in that post game were very adamant that that game from a year ago was in their craw.
Of course it was.
And
how could it not be?
I think Mike Locksley, being the in-game tactician that he is, Anthony McFarland only had 3 carries, and before he basically said, "You know what? We are done with you today.
Yeah.
Let's not."
Now he's been banged up too. This
sure.
Beat,
I mean, I didn't know what they were doing. They started Josh Jackson. They took him out right away. They put in Pigrome, and then they brought Jackson back in the fourth.
Looking for the hot end, man. Like World Series of Poker.
You're right. We've talked too much about
too
Maryland,
much.
But you mentioned Chase Young, so that's the dominant storyline moving forward for this team. And as we continue on here on Rapid Reaction, brought to you at Byers Auto, we have to talk about it. On Saturday morning, ESPN created a little bit of a stir by saying that Ohio State expected a 4-game suspension, and this is a rarity for Ohio State and their PR response team. They publicly refuted that in the press conference before Ryan Day came to the podium, said that is not their expectation whatsoever, which lines up much more like what Tim and I and Berm have all been reporting over the last 36, 48 hours, that speculating about what the exact punishment is going to be is futile at this point. It's in the hands of the NCAA. You can even look at the manual and see that the maximum penalty could be 4 games, but even that is not accurate because it can be more or less.
You don't know the details of what they have found in there as they're looking at things.
And the reason that they dispute the expectation there at 4, there's one reason for that, and there's optimism that he will be back sooner than that,
right?
As that 4 game would be knocked down to 1 or 2 or maybe 3. Nobody can say for certain at this point, Tim.
Yeah.
But
I was fighting that all morning.
The optimism by the people that were sitting in that AD box today was not that 4 was going to happen.
Right.
And they bristled at that suggestion.
And I'm not saying we're the best connected guys in America, so to speak, but we have been pretty well tuned in on this situation from the start. And I'm not patting ourselves on the back, but I'll pat you on the back. But the point is, I was fighting that all in the pregame. I was fighting that on pregame show because it was coming up, what ESPN is reporting, and I'm just going, man, from what I'm hearing, there has been no decision. There has been no recommendation made, etc. And everything is just premature because everybody's trying to, be the first out the gate. But you're right. I mean, this could take all kinds of turns right now. I think Ohio State seems behind the scenes cautiously optimistic about what they know, what they're going to report, and it could be fewer than 4 games or whatever the penalty is you want to look at. But nobody knows right now.
And I would say the same thing. I'm not here to question any other reporter's work. They have people they can talk to. It's sort of like other teams having scholarships. They're doing work too. There's lots of other great journalists out there. All I can say is what the 3 of us in Lettermen Row have been hearing, and that is feedback from Ohio State, from people around Chase Young, from people connected to this case that think that it's going to be 2.
Yeah.
Now, I can't just say that ESPN or anyone else is wrong with 4 and that I'm 100% right with 2. I'm including myself in that. I don't know. I'm not predicting that is going to be the outcome. Yeah. I am telling you, our audience right here, that is what we've heard is most likely at this point. But by no means should you say, okay, it's definitely 2, it's definitely 4.
We're dealing with the NCAA, which is a crapshoot. You're dealing with Ohio State compliance, which is a crapshoot at times. And very importantly is all these reports, all these details, everything that you hear, conflicting reports, this, that. There's so much semantics involved in this situation that it makes no sense to try to pinpoint something right now before there's an actual decision, because it could literally go any possible way.
Right.
He is going to be back. I think that's safe to say, but we have no idea what the timeline will be. The punishment could be more severe. Maybe I shouldn't be so bold about it, but that's been the optimism that's coming from here.
Today was so valuable for Zack Harrison, who, by the way, among other things, learned you can't do that.
Well, you can just turn the other way to do it.
Just turn around and do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying he learned. I asked him about it. He laughed.
It's not his fault the quarterback didn't get off the ground.
Exactly. If I looked like Zack Harrison, I would do that at every play no matter what.
And I thought that was, that flag was just, are you kidding me? Aren't you watching? You're closer to it than I am, the official, but it was what it was. But have those guys get that kind of playing time and see guys step up. Tough Borland with a big-time sack.
I was going to jump in there. You're talking about Zack Harrison, the most impressive guy for me in that first half, someone who takes that criticism. We've been talking about it on the podcast a lot. Tough Borland with the sack, a couple big tackles. He had 5 by halftime.
Right.
I mean, that was a love letter to his haters who don't understand why he continues to have the favor of the coaching staff and why he's on the field. So.
And here's the thing, you can say that was against Maryland. Well, Maryland ran for over 300 yards on these guys.
Compare that to what he did last year. Berm, your pick for a guy who's surprised today.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me because he is a freak, but he's often overshadowed by Okudah and Chase Young, is Malik Harrison. The guy just makes some unbelievably athletic plays and finds a way to do things at key moments. I mean, he knocked down one. He had 2 of them where he could have had one-handed interceptions.
But Pete Warner raced up on that play to engage the guy, kind of whiffed on him, missed on him. The guy's wide open down the right. It would have been one of Maryland's, mail-it-home plays. And Malik Harrison got about 15 feet off the ball. His arm was like 12 or 13 feet off the ground.
He's so good, and he doesn't get nearly the credit he deserves. But circling back to Borland, we were standing 3 feet from him pregame, and we're out
Don't
here.
use the language
We're out here every game before the game, and so we get an opportunity to hear some things that the guys are saying. And I asked Tough about it. He just seemed a little bit more amped up and a little more trying to prod his teammates, and he said it wasn't anything unusual or that wasn't any different than the norm, but it was. And he was very adamant about making sure that Maryland felt them today, and I think what you see out of Ohio State is a team that really gets it right now. And Larry Johnson, the way that he works his guys, to be without 10 stars worth of defensive end today, you have no idea what's going to happen with Jonathan Cooper the rest of the way. Tyreek Smith has been out in and out of the lineup. Tyler Friday's been in and out of the lineup, and then you just see the next guy keep rolling on in, and it's really, really impressive.
Some secret sauce there for the Rushmen. A lot of it for Ohio State as a whole. 73-14 for the top-ranked team in the country. They moved to 9-0. Yeah, Berm.
We did find out about the Rutgers game next week.
Yeah, it'll start at 3:30. Hide the women and children. Do not let them watch what's going to happen.
I have a joke.
Gonna be okay.
So this game will not be on BTN. It's going to be on HBO, where they can show murders.
Oh, see. I'm not affiliated with this broadcast anymore, but I do like Berm.
Well, this has been Rapid Reaction. Once again, I've lost control at the end.
It's going to be a docuseries.
At the end of the show, I wish I hadn't let him tell that joke. That is on me. I apologize for that. This is Berm. That's Tim May. I'm Austin Moore. We will see you next Saturday from Rutgers in what could be the ugliest game any of us have ever seen. We will see you there.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got Rapid Reaction. Hey, and we got Buckeye IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.